Hello, I'm Cecilia Escamilla Greenwald, and I'm with the Vanguard. Today we have a very special guest. An honor to have with us today Jeffrey Deskovic. Jeffrey Deskovic is the president and founder of the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. He is also an advisory board member to It Could Happen to You. Welcome, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. We're here to talk today about historic legislation that establishes what people are calling a new culture of accountability in New York State in the criminal justice system. Basically, yesterday evening, Governor Cuomo signed legislation that overwhelmingly was passed by the New York State Assembly and Senate. And what it does, it establishes the New York State Commission on Prosecutorial Conduct. That is huge. And I know other states are looking at this. You've worked on this extensively, Jeffrey. Why don't you take us back to what got you interested, your organization, the foundation, the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. What got your organization interested in this subject?
Because prosecutorial misconduct was a factor in my wrongful conviction.
And for those that don't know, please share with us your wrongful conviction that happened.
Sure. I spent 16 years in prison in New York for a murder and rape, which I did not commit. I was convicted despite the DNA not matching me. Ultimately, I was exonerated through further DNA testing, which reestablished my innocence while identifying the actual perpetrator. In terms of the prosecutorial misconduct, specifically in my case, so one day before officially getting the DNA test results, which excluded me, the prosecutor ran to the grand jury and indicted me so that he wouldn't have to present that evidence.
Wow.
Another aspect of it was that the medical examiner who was committing fraud, basically, he falsely claimed that he forgot to document medical evidence that he said showed the victim was promiscuous. So he had been complained of in neighboring counties by authorities that he was giving untruthful testimony, and the prosecutor did not turn over that information to the defense. So we never had that to challenge his credibility. And one more aspect of the prosecutor's misconduct was that when the DNA didn't match me, not only did he elicit that false testimony from the medical examiner that I mentioned, but he also took it a step further and mentioned another youth that he falsely claimed had slept with the victim, but he never set the proper evidentiary foundation. So he never called him as a witness. He never called him. He never got a DNA sample from him. He just made the unsupported argument to the jury. And he knew that.
Wow. So there was no accountability. And as a result, you ended up spending how many years in prison?
16 years.
16 for a crime you didn't commit.
Right. So I got involved in the It Could Happen to You coalition, which I'm an advisory board member of, as you pointed out, and which the foundation's part of, because another person who founded the coalition, Bastuk, he had been a public official, and he had been falsely accused of a rape which he didn't commit, and there had been attempts by the prosecutor to hide crucial diary entries, which ultimately had the key information which showed he didn't commit the crime. So Bill was acquitted in 2 hours, but that evidence withholding, it cost him $10,000 each time his lawyer had to make a new discovery motion trying to get that evidence. And so when he was acquitted, he started doing some studying, and he learned that what happened to him has happened to a lot of other people, with the exception that most people, unlike him, so he was able to pull out his retirement. He was able to get it, take money out.
A lot of people don't have those resources to fight back. So exactly. It's almost as if since there's no accountability, they know that they can, for lack of a better word, drain a person out until they can't fight back anymore. And as a result, they end up spending time in prison for crimes that they didn't commit. Is that correct?
That is correct. So shortly after Bill started the coalition, he was connected to me through a mutual person that we knew, Jonathan Verdes from New York State Defenders Association, and we just decided to team up and do policy work. An additional motivation beyond my own case, or maybe as part of it, is that So nothing ever happened to the prosecutor who committed the misconduct in my case. We found that there were 3 other cases where him and this medical examiner, where this medical examiner would alter his findings to fit the prosecutor's theory. So, so we found it was a pattern. He was a serial offender. So a lot of prosecutors are serial offenders who do commit misconduct, and my prosecutor got away with it. There was no commission on prosecutor conduct at the time, so there was nothing to restrain him. There was no way for me to hold him to account. Prosecutors have what's called prosecutorial immunity, so I was not able to sue him in court. I mean, I tried, but the case was dismissed because of that law, so I had nowhere to go to get any kind of justice for what he did. New York State is the 3rd in the country in terms of frequency of wrongful conviction. And in none of those cases where people were wrongfully convicted and ultimately exonerated, in none of those cases were the prosecutors held accountable. Prosecutor misconduct is a factor of commonality which runs through many of the wrongful conviction cases. And that was our argument why we needed this commission.
Yeah, so will this commission be able to look at cases that have in the past, where people have been prosecuted who haven't committed a crime? Will they be able to look at past cases? How far back will this commission take a look at cases, or are these just new cases that come forward? What are they going to be able to do to shed more light on the misconduct of prosecutors?
They're going to be able to go. They're going to be able to go backwards, and there is not a time limit.
Okay.
Remember that the standards for prosecutors, which the commission is going to go by when evaluating something as misconduct or not, is the same standards that the New York Bar Association has had in place for a really, really long time. So the prosecutors have been on notice that they're not supposed to commit misconduct long before the commission happened. Long before the commission was passed, I should say. I want to quickly mention that, the lack of oversight for prosecutors before we mentioned about how they have the immunity, but in addition to that, the things like the grievance committee or the bar association, they've proven to be totally ineffective at holding prosecutors to account, and hence the need for the commission. And again, as I mentioned, none of the wrongful conviction cases that were caused in part by prosecutorial misconduct, none of those cases resulted in the prosecutors being disciplined. So
how many organizations collaborated on this? This has been like an 8 to 10 year project that you have been working on, right? 8 to 10 years.
Yeah,
and okay, how many organizations have been collaborating to work on this?
More than 125.
Wow.
So that's the power of our coalition. Our model is, instead of the old go it alone era where organizations would separately pursue policy changes, it could happen to you. Is different in that it's a statewide coalition made up of many different organizations. Our members include people who are exonerated, falsely accused but acquitted, criminal justice reform organizations, no matter what their lead issue is, individual advocates, formerly incarcerated people, friends and family of people who allege they're wrongfully imprisoned, non-traditional partners. So that we had hotel and restaurant, we had labor, we had steam fitters, teachers unions, and just everyday concerned citizens that are concerned with justice. And so our coalition is statewide. So my point is that it's harder for them to ignore us that way. And we had about 125 organizations that signed our signed on letter when we originally sent it to the governor when the legislation was passed back in 2018. So really quickly, what happened was the District Attorneys Association of New York, not wanting any oversight, they brought a lawsuit. They claimed that the law was unconstitutional. The judge rejected their arguments, but did find a problem in the legislation. So we were able to fix it. So instead of the commission recommending punishments, it simply would investigate them, and those results would be sent to the grievance committee. So it has the investigatory.
Is it the grievance committee that makes the recommendation for punishment as opposed to the commission? Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's the difference. Okay. And again, the grievance committee, by itself, which is what was there in place before the commission, They didn't have subpoena power. It wasn't independent, and complaints would have to be filed. So a lot of attorneys were not filing complaints because they were worried about repercussions to themselves and future clients, that those plea bargains that would otherwise be extended would not be extended any longer, and they knew that nothing would happen either. So those are some of the issues that the commission addresses that were not present before. And so the hope here is that, number one, it would be a deterrence. So it would give prosecutors something to think about before they commit misconduct, so it would restrain. And another thing, right, and another thing would be that it would be a place for accountability. So if it did happen, there would be a place for victims such as myself to file a complaint at, and they could recommend, they can investigate whether misconduct happened or not. Related to that, I want to point out that a lot of district attorneys, they repeatedly run for re-election, and the incumbents, when they're challenged by somebody in the election, the challengers often don't have anything to run on. But if there's a finding that misconduct happened in a certain office, then that would give a challenger something to run on in challenging that district attorney. I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. Let's say there's misconduct, and then the commission's, hears it, makes a complaint, and from there it's going to go to the, is it oversight? Is that what it's called?
From there, say once a complaint's filed, the commission will investigate. It'll make a determination, and if it's determined that misconduct has happened, then that's going to be sent. That'll be sent to the grievance committee for it to determine. If
the commission sees that the grievance committee, I'm just speaking hypothetically, the grievance committee hears it and they say, well, we don't see a problem, and that happens several times, will the commission have the power to say, wait a minute, we have investigated and sent complaints forth that are very concerning, and there's not any punishment being established for these DAs that are misusing their power? What remedy will the commission have? Does that make sense?
No, it does. Well, first of all, once there's a finding that's substantiated, that's going to be public. That wasn't the case before. People would file complaints at the grievance committee, and not only would they not do anything, but nobody would know. Nobody would know. So
this will be public. The public will know about this.
No one would know it's filed. No one would know what the ultimate outcome is. So here with the commission, if a complaint is substantiated, that's going to be known. It'll be transparent. So in terms of if the grievance committee doesn't do anything about it, well, we're going to be watching, and we're going to be monitoring. Meaning it could happen to you. We're going to be monitoring what the outcome is of complaints, and if the grievance committee again doesn't do anything, then we'll look into what additional steps, what else could we do legally in order to address that shortcoming. But that would be then. At this point, we just got the investigatory body passed. So if the grievance committee again doesn't do its job, we'll look at that, and we'll go back and work with the elected officials that we worked with before, and we'll ask them, what can we do now? They're again not doing anything about it, even when complaints are substantiated by the commission. What could we do? And so we'll look at it. We'll look at it at that point.
What other states are working on passing similar legislation? Because this is just so profound. This is huge news. What other states are saying we need these changes in our state?
Well, I wouldn't phrase it quite that way. I would phrase it that, so it could happen to you is so we have coalition groups here actually in California, and also in Pennsylvania. And wait, I can't hear you again. I can't hear you.
Experiencing a little bit of.
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, now we can hear you again. You were mentioning, I asked, what other states may be looking at New York and saying, we
Yeah,
want something similar?
sure. So Pennsylvania and California. So working off of our model in New York, it could happen to you. We now have chapters in Pennsylvania and also California. So we have Pennsylvania, it could happen to you. And we have California, it could happen to you. So the coalition's founder, Bill Bastuk, myself, Steve Downs, who's an attorney, we're three people that are in common to all three chapters, and the rest of the chapters are made up of organizations and residents falling into the same type of categories that we talked about before. So we're again building our coalition. So we're building support in those states. We're walking the halls of the legislature. We're meeting with elected officials. We're meeting with other key individuals and just everyday people that want to join us. So we're building the coalition at the same time as we're building support amongst the elected officials. And we're looking to do this in those other two states. We also do hope that advocates and other people and other legislatures in states other than where we're working at will look at what's happened. I mean, that often happens that way, that other states look to what New York does. And we're hoping that some efforts can be made in other states also following what we were able to do.
I want to read a quote from Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo said, "The prosecutors who serve New Yorkers every day in the state's court system should be held to the highest standards of conduct in the exercise of their duties. This legislation improves the Commission on Prosecutorial Conduct's ability to more effectively oversee and discipline prosecutors to make our court system safer and fairer for all. New York's courts are critical to the functioning of government and the competent administration of justice, and this new law will bolster our ability to do both successfully." So I want to say congratulations. It's been a long road. You all have worked collaboratively, but you didn't give up. There were obstacles, but you, as you mentioned, you worked together as a coalition and supported each other, and this is a big victory. If people are interested in helping in Pennsylvania or California, or want to look at maybe doing something in their state, how can they reach out to you to let you know, hey, I want to help with this? How can they get in contact with you?
Sure. So they can go to the foundation's website, www.deskovic.org, Deskovic. There is a web form there. They can email me that way. I also have a public figure page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. It can happen to you has a website also. It can happen, then the number 2, it can happen to you. You can Google that. So those are the ways that people can reach out. So we want people to reach out to if we want to work with people, strengthen numbers and, delegation and collaboration and spread things out. And if I can't make one particular crucial event, there's another person that can step up. I mean, that happened to me at the tail end of my law school when I was a student. I had finals coming up, and I certainly couldn't skip a final in order to go to a press conference or do a key meeting with the legislator or do a key interview. So I'm one of my roles in the coalition is being a liaison to the exoneree community. And I remember I made phone calls to exonerees Anthony DePippo and Selwyn Days, and I said, look, you've been walked the hall with me, and you've been helping all along, and I have a final. I can't go to the press conference, and miss the final. So I need you to go in there and just next man up, please. You know exactly what you're doing from before, and both of those men did that, and we didn't miss a beat, and we got things done that we needed to have done. So the exonerees are really a really big, important aspect of it, because it brings the flesh and blood aspect of what we're talking about. And I love working with Bill Bastuk because Bill used to work as a staff person in the New York State Assembly. He held a county office as a county legislator and also a town councilman position. So my point in saying that is that he knows like the inside baseball aspect of what tactics to do and at what point, in streamlining things and keeping everything moving forward and doing all of the follow-ups. That's not what my role is. I mean, I strategize some, but the other aspect, that's him. But I need to talk about my case with the electeds and be the liaison to the exoneree community and my name was a little bit
And,
more.
and you've done such a great job. And for those that don't know, and I'm glad you mentioned it, here's a person who served time for a crime he didn't commit. It was just so unjust. And this happens to so many people, more than people realize. And Jeffrey earned his degree, and after earning his degree, and he was out of prison, he worked on his law degree, went to law school, and he became an attorney. And I remember the Vanguard had a dinner, an annual dinner, and they were recognizing you. You were a speaker. And on that night, when you attended the Vanguard dinner, you found out that you had passed the bar. And I remember we congratulated you, and it happened to be your birthday, and we got a big cake for you and sang to you. But what an exciting time to learn that you worked so hard, even after all this horrible stuff happened to you, and you were able to pass the bar exam. I mean, what an amazing story. It really is an amazing story. And the fact that you didn't just say, okay, I'm free, that's it. No, you created a foundation that gives back by helping others who have been through or going through similar situations such as yourself. They're in prison for crimes they did not commit. And, that really says a lot about you. Thank you so much for watching out for others. How many, do you know off the top of your head, how many people have you been able to help exonerate?
Well, we've helped to free 11 people. We've helped to free 11 people who are wrongfully, you froze.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we froze again.
Okay. So
Okay.
we've helped to free 11 people who've been wrongfully imprisoned. So to break the numbers down a little bit, 3 of those have been exonerations. Another case is an exoneration in progress. So Andrew Cuomo is a foundation client, and his conviction was overturned after 24 years. And he's been released on bail with an ankle monitor and home confinement, right? So just, again, prosecution run amok. His co-defendant, Anthony DePippo, key member of the exoneree group in New York, exonerated, compensated on the same set of facts as his co-defendant, but yet the prosecution is going to retry him. So his trial will be at September 13th. So my point is that's an exoneration in progress. We fully expect to win that case. Another person, they were freed. The prosecution again didn't want to concede that they hadn't, that he was innocent, and so rather than stay in prison, he took a nolo contender plea to spend some time with his mother. So that was a 5th person. Another person we got out on compassionate release, whose convictions being reviewed by the Conviction Review Unit in Suffolk County, and the other 5 people we were able to get out on parole. So in general, when a prisoner goes to the parole board, if you don't admit guilt and take responsibility, but instead you maintain your innocence, then usually that already unjust prison stay gets extended by the denial of parole. So despite that usual dynamic, we've been able to help 5 people get released on parole. So we sent a letter to the parole board and we explain who we are, what our body of work is. Then we change gears and we just reference what are the primary and secondary reasons why we believe in someone's innocence. And we ask the parole board not to hold their assertion of innocence against them, but to release them. And so that this way they could remain free, albeit on parole, while the slow wheels of justice turn. And we've been successful that way in 5 instances. So.
Your volume is not working.
Outstanding work with coalition members. And I want to, oops, our internet there. I want to end with Assembly Member Nick Perry's quote. He said, "Today, justice in the Empire State scores a landmark victory as New York becomes the first state in the nation to have a government body that holds prosecutors accountable for their conduct. The damage from just one dishonest prosecutor can be devastating. Therefore, the need for all prosecutors to play fair and honest is paramount." And you, Jeffrey Deskovic, played a role in that, and it could happen to you, played a role in that, and we can't thank you enough. And as this progresses, we would love to have you back to talk to you and see how it's coming along and any other adjustments or any changes in any other states that have, are following what happened in New York and trying to get this passed. We want to thank you so much for taking time to be with us today, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And I'll definitely be willing to come back on. And, I want to salute the Vanguard. A lot of times the media plays a role in setting the stage for wrongful conviction, in establishing a prejudicial pretrial guilt presumptive oriented environment, which can sway the judge, which can infect the jury pool, and so to that extent, the court watching that the Vanguard does is revolutionary and is very key role in a key thing that's happening. So I want to salute the Vanguard, and I'm proud to have worked with the Vanguard in various capacities. The Vanguard does the reprints of articles that I've written previously for the Westchester Guardian and the Looking Back series, and I have been interviewed by the Vanguard before. So I just want to say that, I do appreciate the Vanguard's work, and I'm proud to be associated with the Vanguard.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's an honor to be speaking with you today. Take care. And thank you for tuning in to Vanguard. Please stay tuned for our next interview down the road. Thank you. Bye-bye.